It's 2:14 a.m., and you're not even looking for this. You're 3 hours deep in a scroll that started with productivity tips and somehow turned into trading advice, then dropshipping ads, then a grainy clip with bad audio, and a thumbnail too lazy to be a scam. You almost skip it. Then a sentence catches you off guard, simple enough that it shouldn't stick, and it sticks anyway. Online casinos don't need players to lose. They're built to win. You don't fully understand what that means. You just know you're not closing the tab. The next day, it's still there, sitting behind your eyes during a meeting you don't remember attending. By that evening, you're 3 hours into forums you've never heard of. Threads from years ago, where strangers argue in dense technical paragraphs about something called RTP, return to player, and a phrase that keeps surfacing no matter how far you scroll, house edge. Half the conversation reads like a statistics textbook. The other half reads almost insultingly simple, like a magic trick someone explained too clearly. The system doesn't need to cheat anyone. It just has to exist long enough for the math underneath it to finish its work. That sentence is the one that doesn't leave. A few hours later, a different kind of site. Clean layout, confident copy, a storefront selling something you didn't know existed. Ready-made casino platforms, fully packaged, games included, an admin dashboard already wired into payments, deployable in a weekend. $400. You stare at the price for a long time, not because it's expensive, but because of how unremarkable it looks. No warnings, no friction, just a product page that could be selling templates for a fitness app. You close the tab. You open it again. You read the reviews twice, study the demo panel, convince yourself you're being careful, when really you're just giving the idea time to finish convincing you. That night you buy it. No fireworks. Just an order confirmation and a download link sitting quietly in your inbox, like nothing important happened at all. Setting it up takes longer than you expected, the way every project does once it stops being a thought and starts being a series of small, annoying decisions. Domain name. Server configuration. A logo you redo 4 times because none of them look serious enough. By 3:10 a.m., it's live. You sit back and look at it the way you'd look at a newborn thing you're not sure you're ready for. A clean homepage, a deposit button, a balance counter resting at 0. For one quiet second, it's just a page. Then you remember other people can open it too, and the second stops being quiet. You test it yourself first. Create an account, drop in a small amount of your own money, click through a few rounds just to watch the machinery move. No lag, no errors. Everything behaving exactly the way the sales page promised it would. You win a little. You lose it back. You lean into the glow of the screen in a room that's gone completely silent except for the hum of the fan, and the question in your head shifts from, does this work, to something heavier. What happens when the person clicking that button isn't you? You don't do anything dramatic to find out. Just a single post on a small, half-dead forum, 4 sentences, no hype, new casino, testing phase, here's the link. You close the laptop expecting nothing, the way you've learned to expect nothing from anything you put into the internet. A few hours later, your phone lights up the darkroom on its own. New user registered. You sit up. Then, minutes after that, a second buzz. Deposit received. $27. It is, objectively, almost nothing. You stare at it anyway, because the number was never really the point. A stranger you will never meet just handed a website you built in a weekend permission to hold their money, and somehow that fact is louder than any amount could have been. You watch the session like it's the only thing happening in the world. Bets. Spins. A small win that lifts the balance just enough to feel like momentum. A slow bleed back down that takes its time. Patient in a way that doesn't look engineered, even though you're starting to suspect it is. The balance hits 0. The player logs off without a word. No complaint, no message, no sense that anything unusual happened on their end at all. You sit there a long time after the screen goes still, because something about the silence feels heavier than the $27 ever could. It's a few days later, once a small handful of strangers have come and gone the exact same quiet way, that curiosity finally pulls you into a settings tab you'd been avoiding without admitting it. Buried under statistics and configuration menus you barely understand, a single field, RTP, 96%. You've seen the number before, in forum threads, in the video that started all of this, without ever really letting it land. Now it lands. If 96% comes back to players over time, 4% simply doesn't. Not in every session, not on any predictable schedule, but always, eventually, at scale. The games were never really games. They were a very patient kind of math, wearing flashing lights as a disguise. And you are, for now, the only person standing close enough to read the answer in advance. You don't touch the number right away. You tell yourself there's no need, that it's already working, that some lines shouldn't be crossed just because you technically can. But you keep finding your way back to that field anyway. Some nights just hovering the cursor over it without clicking, like checking a door you have no intention of opening. Then one night you do. 96 becomes 94. A change so small it shouldn't register as anything, and somehow it rewires the entire shape of what you're running. Nothing breaks. Nobody complains. Players still win small and lose it back exactly the way they did before. Just slightly faster now. The bleed a little tighter. The silence convinces you more than any amount of money could. A few weeks later, you lower it again. 92. Somewhere in that second adjustment, the word risk quietly leaves your vocabulary, and the word optimization moves in to replace it. Word of mouth only carries a project so far, so you open an ad account, set a small, almost embarrassed budget, and wait. The next day, there are noticeably more users. Then, noticeably more deposits. $40, $75, $300, nothing dramatic in isolation, but unmistakably steady in aggregate. The kind of curve that doesn't spike so much as it simply, quietly, never stops climbing. You stop refreshing the dashboard once an hour. You start refreshing it every few minutes. Then, almost predictably, the first scare. A payment processor flags an early withdrawal, holds it for review, sends a vague automated notice that says nothing and implies everything. Your stomach drops in a way it hasn't since this started. You spend a sleepless night rerouting traffic through a second gateway, half expecting the whole thing to unravel before it's even properly begun. 3 days later, the hold clears with no explanation. The funds move, and the silence afterward feels almost like forgiveness. You don't relax. You just learn, in a very specific and permanent way, that the quiet can end at any time without warning. Running it alone stops being sustainable before the money does. Messages stack up faster than you can answer them. Withdrawal requests sit in a queue that grows a little longer every day, and the entire machine only works if it feels effortless on the other end. So you bring someone in, remote, support only. Limited access, clear boundaries, a short list of things they're allowed to touch, and a much longer list of things they're not. It helps immediately, the way delegating always does right up until it doesn't. A few weeks later, you add a second person, this one handling payments, tracking crypto deposits. Narrow access again, deliberately narrow. Because by now, narrow access has become the only kind of trust you know how to extend. One night, a deposit comes in that's different from the others. $850. Large enough that you actually stop scrolling and watch. The player wins early, a string of good rounds that climbs the balance fast enough to make your chest tighten. And for a moment, you let yourself imagine the version of this story where someone walks away significantly ahead and tells everyone they know. Then the balance stabilizes. Then it starts dropping. Slow enough that nothing about it looks unnatural. Patient in exactly the way you've come to recognize. By the time the session ends, the math has done what the math always does. You don't feel triumphant watching it happen. You feel something closer to recognition. The The specific discomfort of watching a machine you built behave precisely as designed against someone who has no idea it was ever designed at all. It's not long after that the cracks start, small enough at first that you almost talk yourself out of noticing them. A withdrawal processed a little too fast, handled by someone who isn't you. A user asking, with a casualness that feels slightly performed, how exactly fairness works around here. You tell your support contact to keep it simple, no explanations, and the reply that comes back is so smooth, so immediately polished, that it stops feeling like a person and starts feeling like a script. You begin checking the access logs more than you used to, not because anything looks broken, but because you've quietly stopped being the only person on Earth who understands how this thing actually behaves underneath its calm surface. One night, you stop guessing and actually filter the logs properly, by user, by handler, by time. And the pattern that emerges is impossible to misread once you're looking for it directly. Specific accounts, small, consistent, suspiciously gentle wins, all of them processed by the same person, again and again. You recognize the shape of it instantly. The same week, your phone rings from a number you don't recognize. The voice on the other end is calm in a way that feels almost rehearsed, telling you the platform has been flagged for financial monitoring, recommending, in the gentlest possible phrasing, that you review your operations. Then the line goes dead before you can ask a single question. No name, no agency, no follow-up. Just a sentence dropped into your night like a stone into still water. For the first time since any of this started, two separate threats are unfolding on you at exactly the same moment. Something is leaking from inside the system you built. Something else, outside it, has learned you exist. You don't wait for more proof of either. You've already seen enough of both to know exactly how this ends if you let it keep running on its current shape. You begin moving money in small amounts, different paths, different timing, each transfer deliberately unremarkable on its own. You stop opening messages from your team altogether, because every reply you'd send now only adds another thread to a structure you are actively, carefully, trying to disappear from. One by one, without explanation, without warning, you strip their access down to nothing. Shutting it down isn't dramatic, and that's the part that surprises you most. A handful of clicks. Services stopped. Connections dropped. A domain quietly left to stop resolving, with no farewell message, no refund window, no acknowledgement that anything ever existed there at all. The dashboard that used to update every few seconds simply goes dark and stays that way. Days pass, and you don't rebuild, don't check, don't look back at numbers that technically no longer exist anywhere you can see them. But the habits don't fold up as neatly as the site did. You still flinch when your phone lights up. You still do the math, out of pure reflex, every time a stranger goes quiet a little too long. You spent months building something engineered never to lose. It takes far longer than it should to understand the part the math never told you.